our man Aaron Rodgers as he gives us the lowdown on what went down, what happened with him and the Packers. It's about 4 minutes long. If there's anything I need to jump in and talk about, I'll do so. But for the most part, I'm going to try and keep this thing rolling.
There was a lot of things that transpired. This wasn't, a draft day thing. This was started with a conversation in February that the season ended, and I just expressed, my desire to be more involved in conversations directly affecting my job. Also, I wanted to help the organization maybe learn from them some of the mistakes in the past, in my opinion, about the way that some of the outgoing veterans were treated, and just the fact that we didn't retain a number of players that I felt like were core players to our foundation, our locker room, high character guys. I'm talking about Charles Woodson, Jordy Nelson, Julius Peppers, Clay Matthews, Randall Cobb, James Jones.
But I think what he said here, what he's saying so far, there's a lot of players in the NFL who can relate to that position when it comes to building a team and trying to sustain momentum as a franchise. And Green Bay has largely survived on Aaron Rodgers' arm over the last, 3-4 seasons. For what it's worth, regardless of whether he made it to the Super Bowl or not, they wouldn't be in the positions that they've been in without him. That to me is not something that's up for debate. The guy won MVP last year. This guy is playing at an elite level consistently, even in what we consider down years. Any quarterback any average quarterback in the NFL would love to have his stats in any given season. The guy's been there for a long time, 16 years, 13 as a starter. The guy he has kind of earned that right. He brought a trophy to Green Bay, and he's kept Green Bay, for the most part, in the playoff picture, in the hunt for a Super Bowl. I'd say he's kind of earned that clout. He's earned it.
John Kuhn, Brett Good, T.J. Lang, Brian Balaga, Casey Hayward, Micah Hyde, guys who were, exceptional players for us, but great locker room guys, high character guys. Many of them who weren't offered a contract at all, or were extremely lowballed, or were, maybe in my opinion, not given the respect on the way out that guys of their status and stature and high character deserved.
That's another thing that I think, again, and that's how you can kind of tell that Aaron Rodgers is from that old. No, I don't want to say old school, because hell, it's not really old school, but it is. He represents the kind of like honor and respect that. He's speaking on the honor and respect that franchises who have had players that have played for them for a long time and been in service for them for a long time. There's a certain amount of loyalty that those players have for the franchise, and the franchise has no regard for it. And that is what can rub players the wrong way. Absolutely. Because you see all these guys who've had all these great years, and when it comes time to, if those guys want to get a new contract, even if, a franchise thinks this guy's, he's peaking and he's passing his prime, it's business, right? We know it's business, but they literally do not care about what you've done for their franchise. And even with Aaron Rodgers here in his situation, for all he's done, they still treat him the exact same way as they would treat a player who doesn't have as much influence as Aaron Rodgers has. Maybe he's a 5 or 6 year vet, or 8 year vet, or a 9 year vet. They'll treat him and lowball him and not give him any kind of not show any kind of loyalty, not reciprocating any of that, but they ask the loyalty from the players at all turns, but they're not willing to reciprocate. So, they do it to them, and they did it to Aaron Rodgers. So it makes sense to hear him say these things, because these are the things that come up in locker rooms from time to time, because it's how players feel. There's a level of there's a bond and a chemistry that players have with one another in the locker room over years, players who were together for, long extended years as teammates. There's a kind of loyalty that you kind of feel like you should get from the franchise, especially if you're continuing to play at a high level. And you don't see that in the NFL. And that has mainly to do with the egos of these, people who run these analytics and do all of this due diligence and think that they have the entire formula figured out. When we're really only talking about football here. Football is a simple game. It's a simple sport. And sometimes they make it more complicated than it has to be.
And then it kind of progressed from there into a commitment for the 2021 season and beyond. That really wasn't given at any time. So for me, I had to assess the situation, not necessarily wanting to be a lame duck quarterback, especially after an MVP season, which I think you can understand. And then the other part in February was wanting to be a part of conversations involving free agents, which has never happened in my career. I've trained with a number of NFL guys most of my career in the off seasons. Wanting to be a part of conversations involving free agents, which has never happened in my career. I've trained with a number of NFL guys most of my career in the off seasons. My agency, Athletes First, has had a number of high draft picks over the years. I've tried to pass NFL guys most of my career in the off seasons. My agency, Athletes First, has had a number of high draft picks over the years. I've tried to pass along information. Hasn't really been used, shall we say?
That's exactly what I just got done saying. You give them the information, you try and give them some perspective from somebody who's in the locker room, and it's not, they're not trying to hear it. It's just not something that they feel like it's beneath them to actually entertain a player's perspective on things that they see in the locker room, and see how players affect the locker room, and guys who, provide value through that. And they don't want to hear that shit. They don't want to hear it.
So I wanted to offer my services as a recruiter, and I think we can all understand, Green Bay isn't a huge vacation destination. People are coming here to play with me, to play with our team, and knowing that they can win a championship here.
Oh, that was a not so subtle jab directly in the eyes of the organization, the franchise. This is not a vacation destination city. They come here to play with me and with my teammates and on this team. Yeah, you can look at that a couple ways. You can be like, damn, that's a little bit selfish. Or you can be like, damn, that's actually the truth. Because think about it. Who goes to Green Bay, Wisconsin for anything other than the Green Bay Packers? Unless you live there, you ain't going there unless you're going to go watch a game. So he's not lying when he says it.
The fact that I haven't been used in those discussions was one I wanted to change moving forward. And I felt like based on my years, the way I can still play, that should be a natural part of the conversation. As that progressed from that point, nothing really changed on that front. So we got into March and the conversation changed. As I felt like if you can't commit to me past 2021 and I'm not a part of the recruiting process and for agency, if I'm not a part of the future, then instead of letting me be a lame duck quarterback, if you want to make a change and move forward, then go ahead and do it. That obviously didn't happen. Like I said, it wasn't a draft day thing. There were conversations for a number of months leading up to that. Post the draft, I think what basically happened was then they said, we'll give you some money now. Let's see if we can throw some money at you. I said from the start it wasn't about the money. Obviously, I didn't show up for the off-season program or mini camp. To me, it was bigger than this. It was about trying to be a resource for the organization that I care about and love so much.
No, I mean, look, listening to this cat talk, I agree with him. I don't have any disputes about anything that he said in this video, mainly because if you're listening to what he's saying, especially in the second half, these cats were trying to basically punk him. They were trying to punk him. They told him they're not going to commit to him past 2021, but we ain't going to trade you neither. We're going to use you up every bit that we can, and then we're going to let your ass go, or we're going to trade, and we're going to get something for you. But we're not moving past you in 2021. And he's extending the olive branch, trying to get, trying to like make some progress with the franchise, trying to break through to them, and they don't care. So now that it gets out to the public, and now you've got all this speculation about things, and, of course, Green Bay is going to they're trying to be as vague as they can when talking about the situation and acting like they don't know about things that are going on. They basically have been taking this cat for granted, and he got tired, and he realizes that, and he's tired of it. So, of course, like he said, what did they try to do next? They went from ignoring him. They went from disregarding his advice to ignoring his offering to be of service for them in recruiting and just finding a path back to a championship and free agency acquisitions. They blew him off on that. They told him they were going to commit to him. He's, like he said, he's basically sitting at a lame duck status. And then when they're looking more and more like the fucking fools, they decide, okay, let's throw some money at him, as if Aaron Rodgers, with his MVPs, with his Super Bowl trophy, as if he is going to be moved by a little bit more money than what he had before. The man's making a ton of money as is, and if he wants to, he could fuck around and go host Jeopardy and get paid just in the range of what he's making in football without even endangering his body. Like, the dude is an elite level quarterback, and he has proved it every time that he's been questioned. He is, whether it be, his stats being a little bit lower than they were in the previous season. The dude comes right back and blows the next season out of the water. And last year, is there any doubt? The dude he had a chip on his shoulder, and he flexed on just about every team they played, except for them Bucks. But the dude's greatness is undeniable. It's undeniable. And they literally tried to play this cat. And they tried to play him like they play any little 2-year player in the NFL. They did the same thing, which is just, that's where I am a huge advocate when I see these kind of things happen, because they've been happening forever, since the beginning. When I see these kind of things happen, I become more of an advocate for players using their power to fuck with the franchise. Thinking about this, now that he's actually come out and said his piece and actually gone into detail on things, thinking about it, they're lucky. Green Bay is lucky that Aaron Rodgers is not an asshole, because if he was, he could have fucked this whole season up. You think he can't sit out one entire season and not play? He can. And he can pay the fines, and he will be okay. He could do that. He could have done that. He could have went the Deshaun Watson route and just said, I'm not coming back, period. I will not step on the field for y'all, period. They can take their chances with Jordan Love if they like. With Aaron Rodgers, man, he's he doesn't have the animosity that I thought he would have. He's very deliberate, very calm, and very methodical in how he's speaking about these things in a matter-of-fact way because, you know, it's what he's saying is true. You see it. I mean, I've seen it in the locker room in my career, and I know plenty of players who have seen it in the locker room in their career. Teams do this stuff. Teams can't seem, sometimes franchises and front office people can't seem to get the hell out of their own way. They think they're so smart. They think they're creating some new style of coaching and recruiting and they have just a whole new strategy that other franchises, they're trying to all one up each other when this is just football. This is football. It's the same as it's ever been when it comes to the fundamentals of playing the game. More disciplined players, better players have a better chance of winning. Teams that have good chemistry, teams that have strong locker rooms, teams that have great culture, they win. We see it every year. That has never failed. You don't see a team that's got controversy going up and down its locker room. You don't see those teams winning championships. A controversy, sure, but you don't see teams that have consistent problems, whether it be in games or out of games. You don't see those teams win. You see the teams that have good culture, that have a core number of players that are essential to the health of the locker room. You see those guys win titles. Look at the Bucs. The Bucs have a core of great players, but also a core of players who have respect amongst their peers because they've been there for extended periods of time for the most part. And they've proven their mettle on the field, and they have been that source of leadership for the rest of the team to follow. And then they added Tom Brady. You know what I mean? So it was a team that was ready to go because they were building a good culture, and Tom Brady solidified that good culture and solidified the direction of the franchise, and they won a championship. Green Bay has been knocking at the door for years, but you see that consistently their roster flips, especially on the defensive side, far too often. Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, those are guys that should have still been in Green Bay to finish their careers because they were the heart of the defense, and that defense moved and made plays in the postseason because of those guys. You know what I mean? Charles Woodson. That's another guy. You keep him as long as you can because even if he's not a starter, he is good for your locker room. You hang on to a guy like Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis was in Baltimore until the last drop, and because he helped instill the mentality in the younger players before he went out the door. And they gave him years to do that because it takes years to build that. They could have easily let Ray Lewis go 3-4 years before he ever left or before he retired, and from a talent standpoint, you could replace that. Because look, Jacksonville Jaguars linebacker Darryl Smith went from Jacksonville after Jacksonville refused to pay him a dime, even though he's one of the highest rated linebackers in the NFL. They refused to pay him a dime. He goes to Baltimore, and you never hear anybody say the entire time Darryl Smith is in Baltimore that they miss Ray Lewis because you had a guy who fit the same mold of leadership and work ethic. And along with the players who were already there, who had that instilled in them with guys like Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, you know, he fit right in because he was already at that level. He was already at that level mentally and physically on how he handled himself on the field. So you see one franchise whose roster rotates continuously because they don't make the right decisions and they don't value the players that have actually helped create a foundation for you to build towards or build on top of towards an ultimate goal. You have those guys leaving and going to other teams and then going over there and being successful. And, you know, that's the difference between great franchises and just NFL and average NFL franchises.